Welcome back to Just Chattin', and this is the series of videos we do on Thursday and Sunday evenings just for our own entertainment. So for all you Audie fans, he is still asleep. He has pretty much been sleeping nonstop for the last couple of weeks because it got cold. It's winter, and a little cat does not like the cold. So I put together a little nest for him on my bed so he would have somewhere to curl up and sleep on a fuzzy blanket. And by the way, underneath the fuzzy blanket, there were a couple of feather pillows, so he can just sort of settle in there and hibernate in peace and comfort. Now, I showed pictures of this over the weekend on one of those videos, so I want you folks to get a chance to see them too, so that you understand that even though he is sulking because it's winter and hibernating because he doesn't want to deal with the cold, he is still very contented and very, very comfortable where he is. All right, so we are going to take a quick look at the intro before we get started, and we will be right back. So, there is a little story that has hit the media this weekend, but it seems to be flying under the radar. And I thought we would take a look at it, mostly because I don't think it should fly under the radar. And that is that Harry has announced he is not going back to the Sentebale charities, whatever his involvement with the Lesotho people and that charity is done. He's walking away from it. And yeah, I don't think anybody is surprised by this. He is behaving like a petulant toddler because, in fact, that's what he is. But it is surprising that this charity that he allegedly founded to honor his dear dead mummy has become something he can so easily throw away. When the controversy originally started some time ago, and it was as a result of complaints made by Dr. Sophie Chanduka, the director of the charity, that all seem to have stemmed from the fact that Harry and Nutmeg, or Harry on behalf of Nutmeg, had insisted that she make a statement exonerating Nutmeg from the allegations that Nutmeg had abused her publicly by making her crawl under everybody's arms and not stand where Dr. Chanduka should have been standing, which was center stage, but that's where Nutmeg wanted to be. When they were passing out the award for a polo match. And again, Nutmeg needed to be there, although I don't know why, because she's not directly involved with the charity and she wasn't directly involved with the polo. But hey, it was a stage and she needed to be in the center of it. And of course, Dr. Chanduka says, no, I'm not going to release a statement pretending this didn't happen, that I'm not going to allow the charity to be dictated to be used as a public relations vehicle for Harry and Nutmeg. And one thing led to another. There were all kinds of allegations about the sock puppet running roughshod over the board, bringing people in just, hey, this is my friend, he's on the board now, without any regard to the rules of the corporate governance. It was quite a little mess for a while, and it was garnering headlines. Interestingly enough, now that the sock puppet has walked away, we have one story that I have found so far. There may be more, and I hope there are more, because I don't want to see this just sail under the radar, as I said, because I think we need to look at this. It's things like this that give us permission to question everything the sock puppet says about preserving the legacy of his dear dead mummy, about his commitment, not just to Africa, but to anything. Because, in fact, whenever his commitments have become inconvenient to him, he has happily walked away from this. I'm sure we all remember that he was supposed to be at a veterans affair and stiffed them in order to go to the Lion King premiere, where he openly lobbied people to get work for the wife. We need to look at this because the media is continually throwing the sock puppet and nutmeg in front of us as committed humanitarians, philanthropists. No, they are not. They are self-promoting dilettantes. They are aligning themselves with whatever cause is trendy at the moment and whatever cause is going to further their own personal agenda this weekend. And we've seen that so many times. But this is going to lead us into the bigger story. And that is Diana. And yes, Harry has no problem walking away from the charity he allegedly founded to honor his dead mom. And he is now apparently in talks with Netflix about producing a documentary on the life of Diana. Now, I don't really think the world needs a documentary on the life of Diana. Diana's life, at least when she was a member of the British royal family, was amply documented at the time. Diana was on the front pages of every news outlet and every fashion magazine and every beauty guide and every evening news program. Diana so much as walked out the front door, and she was papped, and it was making the media. So do we really need this? Harry is saying we need it so that a new generation can get to know about his mother. So I imagine they're targeting this documentary at Gen Z. Yeah, let's get the Zoomers out there and let's get them on board the Diana train. Well, the problem is these children were born after Diana's death. She is an historical character as far as they are concerned, as well she should be, because, again, new generation, they are looking to the future. The sock puppet wants them to look to the past. Why? Because everything in his life is wrapped up with dead mummy, and he loses his relevance if Diana becomes forgotten, a relic of a bygone era, which in fact she is at this point. Right or wrong, that's what happens. Time marches on, and the people that were very influential years ago are no longer relevant. Diana is no longer relevant. In fact, the only people who really remember her are the baby boomers, and we're all of retirement age now. So, come on, let's get past this. But the media is taking the approach to this story that this is something that is going to further damage Harry's relationship with William. Now, I believe they are correct about that, but I don't believe that is the biggest threat in this whole future debacle, but it's out there. Of course, William will be upset. He does not want to see his mother's legacy merchandised, which is exactly what Harry is proposing to do. Sell a documentary to Netflix. You don't get much more blatant merchandising than that. And whatever version of Diana is going to get sold to Netflix and then, of course, presented to the public specifically Gen Z, is going to be a version of Diana that has been heavily curated, not just by the sock puppet and his weird mummy obsession, but by Nutmeg. So obviously the story that comes out about Diana from this documentary is going to be poor Saint Diana, perpetual victim of the royal family, murdered by the press. And make no mistake about it, Harry has said repeatedly, the press killed his money. And we've talked about this before. That is just crazy. That is just born out of the dumpster fire that is Harry's brain. There's no basis in reality for this. That is the version they are going to get. It's going to be a very twisted view of a woman who, although she was certainly not a saint, was certainly not a demon either. But what will end up happening is when this sanitized version of Diana is handed to Gen Z. Gen Z is not stupid. They may be young, but they're not imbeciles. The sock puppet wouldn't understand that because he himself, being an imbecile, naturally thinks everybody else is just like him. I don't even know what to say about that. But once Gen Z gets this sanitized, twisted, spin-doctored version of Diana and her life, not being idiots, they are going to start scratching away at that layer of PR frosting, and they're going to try to get to the truth. Why? Because, like I say, they're not imbeciles. And what the sock puppet doesn't realize is Gen Z is a generation that is arguably more educated than any generation that has come before them. So yeah, they're going to get to the truth. And the problem with presenting Diana on a pedestal to this generation is when they start scratching away at the surface, they are inevitably going to knock Diana right off that pedestal, and they will start focusing on the things that Harry will not touch. Is Harry going to look at Diana's many, many extramarital affairs? No, can't, because Diana's the victim. He's certainly going to talk about his daddy and Camilla. Is he going to talk about the fact that Diana had focused her suspicions not on Camilla, but on Tiggy Leg Burke, on the nanny? Not likely, because that does make Diana seem like a bit of a flake and a bit of a kook, and probably a little more paranoid than he's comfortable with. Was Diana a flake and a kook and paranoid? Yeah. Not to the point where I think she deserved to be institutionalized, but she certainly was a bit of a flake, a bit of a kook, and definitely paranoid. And we have to give her some space, because she entered the British royal family as a teenager who had very little experience in the real world. She had grown up in the British aristocratic classes, which is to say, a bubble. She had no education. Her only exposure to employment was working as a nanny, a house cleaner, and a daycare aide. Even though the press says she was a kindergarten teacher, she was not. She didn't even have the most fundamental qualifications for that job. In fact, I would question whether or not she was qualified to be a daycare aide or a nanny to begin with. But hey, the fact is, Diana had a very, very limited batch of personal resources to bring to bear when tackling a role that was larger than life. She was a teenage girl. She did not fare well under the pressure of royal life. Most teenage girls would not. She did not get a lot of support from Charles because they were temperamentally like fire and water. Diana was the wrong woman for Charles. Charles was the wrong man for Diana. They weren't even part of the same generation. So it was doomed from the start. But was Diana blameless in the failure of the marriage? No, she was not. She absolutely was not. Is Harry going to portray her as being blameless? Of course he is, because he considers Camilla to be the enemy. So we're going to have Camilla as Cruella de Vil once again. I think I'm going to start calling her Camilla de Vil, because that certainly seems to be the way Harry looks at her. So, is that going to alienate William? Maybe not. Is it going to alienate Charles? Oh, yeah. The fact is, Harry can get no good out of this. The only thing dredging up Diana's memory could possibly do is, 1, generate public interest in a Netflix project, which puts dollars in Harry's pocket, and he will certainly be glad for that. And 2, alienating everyone in his family. Because I think everybody was relieved to be through with the Diana drama, not to suggest they were happy that Diana passed, because I do not believe anybody was. But I think they would not be human if they were not at least relieved that the drama was over, because Diana was just, she was like a walking drama maven. Diana did not go through life quietly, and that was by design. So, yeah, dredging this up is going to do him no good. Is this real? In other words, is this more than just rumor? I would say yes. The story seems to have traced back to Rob Shooter, so consequently his original article is listed along with all the others in the video notes. And I have had concerns about Rob Shooter being used as a source of information. I've mentioned this before. He tends to speak of undisclosed sources when he is rumor mongering. But people are picking up on this. And again, they could just be rumor mongering as well. But Harry has suggested, subtly, that he would like to put his mother out there for the world to see her. The woman he knew, well, the woman he knew as a small child, in the way a small child knows their dear mummy. Does Harry have the ability to present Diana's life objectively? No, of course not. That's not on the table. No one could present Diana's life objectively and still gain Harry's support. Is it likely Nutmeg is going to bring objectivity to the project? No, of course not. So any Harry and Nutmeg sponsored biography of Diana is going to be a hatchet job on the royal family. That goes without saying. Would Netflix be anxious to pick up on this? Of course, because Nutmeg and the sock puppet tearing down the royal family is bankable for the media. So, do I think there's something to this? Well, yeah, I do. I think if they can come up with a project, then Netflix will almost certainly go forward with it, even if it is highly biased, even if it is Diana as seen through the eyes of her devoted child and, her wannabe clone daughter-in-law. Yes, I think there's something to this. So I'm throwing it out there because in terms of massive mistakes, I think this could be the biggest mistake Harry and Nutmeg could be making. And I think the real problem is Diana's legacy will suffer for it. Most people are perfectly willing to leave Diana's memory alone, to allow time to sort of smooth over the rough edges and say, oh yeah, Diana, Princess of Wales, pretty girl, and let it go at that, and not see Diana, who was less than sterling. And the problem with that in a more global sense is Diana was a monarchist. Diana would not have wanted to see her legacy used to attack the royal family. She would never in a million years have wanted to see her legacy used to attack William in particular. Do I think she would have minded if it was used to sort of throw a swat in passing at Charles and Camilla? No, I don't. But William, oh yeah. Let us not forget, as I started off by saying, it's their mother. It's Harry's mother, but it's William's mother too. And I don't think Diana would approve. Remember, Diana's genes don't just stop with Harry. Diana's genes are carried forward through William and through George, through Charlotte, through Louis. And those are the children who will carry the monarchy forward. The fact that Harry is sort of, his line is dead-ending off on the sidelines somewhere. No. So I don't think Diana would be thrilled by this. Do I think that Harry and Nutmeg will stop to consider that? Absolutely not. If there's a payday at the end of the line in this for them, they are going to take it. So that's what I have for you today. We are going to take a look at a slideshow on the way out. I think we will take a look at Diana. And I hope to see you all next time. Thanks for being with us, and have a terrific day.